I am unboxing, installing a decoder, and taking a test run on a Walthers N-Scale SW1200 on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure and subscribe down below and click that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. Over 20 years ago, when I built my very first layout, I built a DC version of a small town in west central Missouri on the Missouri Pacific lines. And on that layout, I had a couple of locomotives that I have held on to all of these years. One you've seen before is Union Pacific number 912, and the other is a little SW1200 switcher, which was Missouri Pacific number 9181. And when I made the upgrade to DCC, the Union Pacific locomotive was easy to upgrade. It was DCC ready. All I had to do was drop in a replacement board. The SW1200, which was a lifelike locomotive, was a really good runner on DC, and so I wasn't willing to get rid of it because I had been so happy with its performance on my DC layout. I held onto it in a box for several years, and then when I made the decision to model Saginaw, Texas, I decided to use it as a stand-in for this former Denver and Rio Grande Western number 134, which is a dedicated switcher at the then ADM grain elevator in Saginaw. No N-scale model of the SW1200 had been made in a Denver and Rio Grande Western paint scheme, and so if I was going to have to do a stand-in anyway, figured I'd just as well use the stand-in that I already had until such a time as either a commercial model was available or I had the time to redecorate this or some other model to make the specific prototype that I wanted. I milled the frame on that old lifelike locomotive and installed a Digitrax DZ123 decoder. Now, I'm going to confess that this locomotive, while it has functioned, has never run particularly well with the DCC decoder installed. Well, last summer, Walthers N made an announcement that they were coming out with some new SW1200s, including this Denver and Rio Grande Western, number 135. Being just one digit off from the locomotive that I had photographs of and that I wanted to model, I decided that this would be a good way to go to get that model on my layout that I wanted, and also hopefully to get one that is a little better running. Now, Walthers is the successor of Lifelike. The new locomotives are DCC ready. So when they made this announcement last summer, I jumped on it and made an advance reservation to get one of these locomotives for myself. Well, today, I received a box from Walthers. And so we're going to open this up in a moment over at the workbench. We're going to take a look at this new locomotive and see what kind of details it has. I'm going to be installing a decoder in this locomotive today, and you'll get to see that. And then we'll take it over to the layout and take it for a little test run and see how it runs. So let's go over to the workbench and get this package opened up and get started. So here's my package that I received today from Walter. So let's get right to it, and we will open this thing up and see what we have inside. Always exciting getting a new product in the mail, especially if it is a piece of rolling stock or a locomotive. And of course we have our obligatory bubble wrap and our packing slip here. Just going to see if it's had anything special, but it doesn't. And of course we have a latest copy of the flyer in here. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. For now, let's just get to the good stuff right here, which is our locomotive. And here is the specifications, the EMD SW1200 Loco, Denver and Rio Grande Western, number 135. So here's our locomotive, and we will open this up and see what we have. Remove the packaging here. Packaged very well by Walthers with the nice protective plastic in the typical N-scale jewel case. A little extra piece of plastic here. for protection, and we're going to very gently pull that out and set it right there. See if there's anything else in the box. There is in here a sheet that has the warranty. Oh, good. And it has the sheet with the warranty, has a breakdown of the motor, and then on the other side we have the breakdown of the locomotive itself, as you would expect. So very good. I'm going to save all this packaging. I'm going to keep this box open because I'm going to need that in a minute. Now, I'm going to pick this up and we're going to take a look and let you have a close-up here. Hopefully I can get that to focus and stay. As you can see, it's got the nice white painted handrails, safety rails. There we go. It's got pretty nice detail, really, on the hood. The long hood there has very nice detail along all of the rails. Safety rails are painted white, as you would expect. It's got the reflectors, as would be typical in its day. Some modifications we'll need to do to make this look like the locomotive as it does today, especially with the exhaust stacks. They today have some spark arresters on them that I believe are a combination muffler and spark arresters. I do see just one slight flaw. I think it's more in paint than it is in anything else, along one of the steps that would be on the conductor side in the rear. Pretty minor. I think we can touch that up. There's actually a little flaw in the paint on that same side on the second step in the front as well. Apart from that, really we have a pretty nice looking locomotive here. I have already purchased a drop-in decoder for this, and the drop-in decoder I have purchased is the Digitrax DN126M2, and I've never actually installed this exact decoder, but I've installed a lot of Digitrax board replacement decoders over the years, and they're usually very straightforward and very simple. So we're going to do this right now. Right down here in the bottom, you can see that the little board replacement decoder, very small, but it's got to be because it's going in a small in-scale switcher. We're going to start by disassembling our locomotive. I'm going to start pulling. As I pull, the fuel tank comes off of the frame, which is fine. Put that inside the box here. And I'm going to grab it right by that part of the frame where the fuel tank was, and grab the shell and just try to work it off. I tried, a lot of times you can do these by putting them on the edge of the jewel case and dropping them. I tried that a while ago and wasn't getting that to work. There's just not enough leverage for that to work with this little short locomotive. That works great with longer locomotives and in scale. But we're just going to gently work it here. I think starting to see it work off here. I'll be careful because I'm afraid that my little wipers are going to come off. In fact, I think one of them may just have, which means I already may have something that I have to repair. Yep, there it is, sure enough. That's disappointing, because one of the things that gave me the biggest problem on the lifelike switcher that I had was those wipers. The fact that they came off of the body so easily and were hard to get back on and keep on, and therefore it was hard to get good, consistent electrical contact. I feel like all of those wipers are going to just come off in the process of trying to take this body off, this shell off of this thing, and that is going to be a real problem. I've never seen an N-scale locomotive that those wipers, see, there's a second wiper that just popped off. I've never seen those just come off like that, and I'm going to have to find a way to make sure we get those reattached, or we'll have a real problem.
So we're going to look here. Here's a wiper that stayed on, but is bent slightly. There, I think it's okay. This one also is bent. They all bent in the process of coming off. And that one just came off. That's going to be a real problem. I'm going to have to figure out how to come back and reattach those. And like I said, that was the biggest problem I had with the lifelike one, was the fact that those came off. So that's got me really concerned. This is the light board that I'll be replacing right here. And these and my lifelike had the same thing. It has these little caps that cover the screw heads on the screws that hold the frame together. And I want to pry those out, but I want to do it without popping them clear across the room. So see, I'm just getting under the edge of that with my knife. And there's that cap. And we'll put that back in there whenever we're finished. Now I've got my precision screwdrivers right here. Hope you all can see this okay. I don't want to take this completely apart. I just want to loosen these screws. Oh, 1/2 or 3/4 of a turn maybe. Just enough that it'll let. I'm going to loosen the back one a little too. I don't know if I need to, but I'm going to. Then I'll take one of the flat ones, and I'm just going to open up the frame a little bit just to loosen it up, or hopefully we can kind of pull that board out. These wires that connect to the board are friction fed wires. And you see that one's already just popped out. This one there, it just popped out too. That's good. That's what we want it to do. Those come out nice and easy like that. And then there we go. That's come apart enough to loosen the board on one side. Oh, I must have taken that screw completely loose because the whole frame is coming apart. That's okay. That's not a problem. Just want to get that out for now. We're going to open up our Digitrax board here. The owner's manual. I always keep these manuals. And in fact, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to write right on the manual. This is DRGW135. And that way, anytime I need to know what decoder is in this locomotive, I can flip through and find the locomotive number, and I know I've always got that reference there. Okay, so that's my replacement board. I'm going to put it in here. Not my original white board. Now I'm going to reach in and get my replacement board, and it's going to go in just like the original board did. Let's get it turned the right way. There's a tiny little LED on the front of it right there, and that goes in the front and on top. And this is going to slip in to that same location where that board was, and get my truck back on there. My screw in place, my nut is in place, and the right screwdriver should be able to go ahead and tighten that down. And that will have the board installed. And now get some little needle nose pliers, I think. We got to put these wires back in these friction fed holes, and these seem to be back a little closer than the others were, but that's okay. That's not a problem. Just going to bend this wire up a little bit, kind of get it lined up, and then push it right into the hole. Just push it down. Same way with the other one. These are real nice, where you don't have to go through and try to solder the wires, because you can so easily, if you're not really good at soldering, and you got just the right soldering iron, soldering pencil, it's real easy to mess up a board when you're trying to solder wires onto it. These friction fed wires are a great solution to that for somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of soldering experience. They just friction fit right down into those holes, and that is set. Okay, I am back, and I have been able to repair those little pickup tabs. And I did a little bit of asking around to see if anybody had this problem, and I could see a lot of places online where people had a similar problem. This is obviously an ongoing issue and has been for years with these little bitty locomotives, because again, I had one 20 years ago, had the same type of connections for the pickups, and I never knew how to repair it. But now I do. Literally what I did is each place where those pickups broke off, I sanded smooth the little plastic that had held it in place. If I didn't say before, the way these were held on was there was a little tab these had been installed onto, and then that tab was melted down over it. So what I had to do is sand off that tab, and here's some pictures I'll show you. Drill a couple of number 61 holes where the tab had been, and then I cemented a couple of pieces of 30,000 styrene rod into each one of those tab locations. Let that cement set up completely. Then I put my pickup down over the top of the tab and clipped them down short, and I used the tip of my soldering iron to melt them down over the tab. And now they're on pretty strong. I think they're probably on better than they were when they came from the factory. So now that I got that done, we're ready to reassemble our locomotive. So now that we have our tabs repaired, we're ready to reinstall the shell onto our chassis. We have our light board installed here. Make sure we got the front here matched up with the front here. I'm going to do this very carefully because I don't want to mess up these tabs that I just repaired. The funny thing, guys, we all know how we are about reading directions. The locomotive doesn't come with any directions for disassembly. So, there were no directions there for me to ignore. However, after I did all of this, I got to looking at the directions that came with the decoder, the Digitrax decoder, and it gave directions for disassembling the locomotive, and those directions that came with the Digitrax decoder talked a lot about being careful not to damage those tabs as you disassemble the locomotive. So they obviously were more concerned there than Walthers was. And what they said to do to help get it apart was actually to use some toothpicks to get in between the chassis and the shell to kind of widen it out and to create some space and kind of widen the shell out as you took it apart. And so I'm going to attempt to do the same thing as I put it back together. Okay. There. Now everything seems to be starting to go together. Make sure I get my electrical wipers on top of the pickups from the trucks themselves. Set it down and just kind of scoot it down on there. And think we have it in place. Electrical pickups all seem to be making contact in the right places. Can take our fuel tank and reinstall it. Get it going the right direction. Here we go. Okay. And there we have it. The locomotive is finally reinstalled, and I'll give you another close-up look. And there it is, all reinstalled, reassembled. Let's take it out to the layout and see if we can't give it a little test run.
Now that I've installed the decoder, had an opportunity to thoroughly inspect and test out the Walthers N-Scale SW1200, let me summarize my thoughts. First, I really thought that this locomotive had been retooled a little more than it has since the lifelike model that was produced a little over 20 years ago. Comparing the model that I have from 20 years ago and the model that I just purchased, I found that the tooling on the body is almost identical. Very, very little, if any, change has been made. The design of the locomotive is almost identical as well, including what, in my opinion, is a very poor design with regard to how the electrical pickups are installed onto the body. As you saw in the video, 3 of those pickups came off the first time I took the shell off of the locomotive. The 4th one came off when I had to take the shell off a second time. However, when I reinstalled those pickups in the manner that I showed you, I have taken the shell off of the body 3 or 4 more times since then for some different tweaks and some lubrication, and the pickups seem to be staying very, very well. So honestly, the modification that I made is actually a better design and holds the pickups in place better than what was done originally at the factory. With regard to how it runs, the installation of the decoder in this locomotive was very, very easy. The Digitrax decoder that I installed seems to work very well, and the running of the locomotive itself is adequate. It's not a perfectly smooth runner, although if I have a chance to really break it in, I'm sure that'll make some difference as the gears mesh together. The locomotive is a little bit on the loud side, as was the old version. You can definitely hear the gears inside as it runs, but it does run fairly smoothly, and it does a good job of pulling a number of cars. Now, for my uses, I'm going to be using this little switcher literally on one industry on my layout, so it's going to get pretty limited use, and it's eventually going to be fairly heavily weathered, and I think it'll serve well. If I was wanting to use a locomotive like this for full-time switching in a busy yard, I might want to go a different direction with a locomotive that ran a little smoother and maybe just a little more reliably. So those are my thoughts about this Walthers N-Scale locomotive. If you have purchased one of the newer Walthers N-Scale SW1200s, I'd be interested to know your thoughts, and I'm sure my other viewers would as well. So tell us about your experiences in the comment section down below. I hope that you'll join me next week, as next week's going to be a pretty exciting day for me personally. Next Tuesday, April 3rd, will be the 1-year anniversary of my starting Ron's Trains and Things. And so I'll be having a special video that day celebrating that 1-year anniversary. Part of that video is going to include the announcement of the winners of the Down and Dirty Weathering Contest, the 1st and 2nd place, and the People's Choice Awards. I want to thank all of you who voted in the People's Choice Awards, and of course I'm especially thankful for those who participated in the contest, who weathered models and made the videos to make the contest possible. And I want to one more time thank Eric at IMRRO.com for helping me to set up the contest and helping it to run smoothly, and also Stephen at Midwest Model Railroad, who sponsored the contest and provided $250 worth of gift prizes. Some of you have also been asking about where and how you can buy Ron's Trains and Things t-shirts. And I'm going to be making an announcement about orders for those Ron's Trains and Things t-shirts and coffee mugs in that video next week. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure and watch for that, and I'll be telling you how you can order those in that video. I'll also be sharing some other fun things just in celebration of you, my viewers, and my subscribers who have made this such a successful year for me, and also all that I've been able to accomplish and the things that I've really been excited about with regard to this channel in its first 12 months. So I'm looking forward to that video, and I hope that you will be sure and join me. And I think that you will enjoy it as well, and I look forward to seeing you then. Lizzie?